Now, if you're wondering why this is clearly different than my usual filming, is because my laptop, I accidentally wrecked my laptop last week, and so I had to resort to the camera that I'm using right now. And so this episode's going to look a little bit more different than usual, but, you know, hopefully things will be back to the way they were before. Hello, Takus. I am the Manga Maniac, and you know what I could use right now? A hero sandwich! Welcome to Hero Sandwich Time, and today we are going to be reviewing Monster Soul Volume 1. So, why did it come out now? Because it has a lot of similarities to Fairy Tail, even though this was coming out before and during Fairy Tail. And, my God, it has the potential to be good, but it really fucks it up. The world is cliche, the characters are all idiots, and the story really isn't that good. So, let's look at this schlock that was sandwiched between his first big hit, Mishima's first big hit, Rave Master, and his next and current biggest hit, Fairy Tail. This'll be fun. So the story takes place in a world called Elvenland, where humans and monsters exist. Okay, when I think of elves, I don't think of monsters. Okay, I know, one could argue it's like, Lord of the Rings or something like that, but the monsters that are featured in here are not fantasy related. They're just basically renditions of classical monsters like Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, or, stuff like that. So, it's a very misleading title, and even in and of itself, Elvenland is not a great title for your world. I mean, couldn't you come up with something better? I don't know, just something other than Elvenland. After we get introduced to our world, we're introduced to a little monster called Joba that is an onion imp. Okay, I've never heard of an onion imp, but then again, considering that the Japanese make ghosts out of anything, even if it's inanimate, it's like, okay, whatever. Whose entire purpose is to be cute, but all I could think of is like, what the hell was Mishima on when he drew that thing? He was being captured by a couple of poachers that are named the Vulcan Brothers. And then they get interrupted by a boy named Aki, who is a monster, as is noted by the obvious subtitle, who tells them that to let go of the little onion thingy. Instead of giving him them back, the poachers decide to try to shoot him, and they do manage to shoot him, but then a dust storm interrupts the two poachers, and we are introduced to Turan, who is a golem. Okay, when I think of golems, I think of the either living clay figures or rocky-looking things that have a soul, but I don't think of a girl who looks like a missing Bratz doll, a rejected Bratz doll. And then after that, we introduce to James, who is a Frankenstein, and I gotta say, that chin is like super ridiculously long. And then Mummy, who is, well, a self-explanatory monster. Who would have known that female mummies were sexier than male mummies? Maybe she uses a shit ton of lotion or something. Anyway, so they rescue Joba, and the poachers are tied up, and then our heroes go along their merry way, and one of the Vulcan brothers decides to look them up in his little monster encyclopedia, and it turns out that our four monsters are known as the Black Heirs, who are the elite commando unit of the Monster Army during a war that took place prior to our story. And all I could think of is the Black Heirs is a really bad title for your elite monster unit. I mean, couldn't you come up with something better? I mean, when I think of Black Heirs, all I can think of is either really bad pollution or, it could be a reference to, like, you know, the Black Death or something like that, but it's just, in of itself, I don't think of a elite monster group when I hear Black Airs. So the other Vulcan brother decides to try to capture all 4 of these monsters so they can get a huge frickin' reward. And then we cut to the Black Air's home, and I'm already sensing fairy tale resemblance. And they're celebrating Turon's birthday, apparently. And then, like, James's face falls off for some reason. And then, Mummy decides to strip for some reason. Meanwhile, the poachers are looking in, figuring out how to catch them. And I gotta say, those costumes they're wearing are so crappy that I'm surprised that none of the monsters in this underground labyrinth picked up that they were really human. I mean, how blind are these monsters? I mean, if they hate humans or at the very least don't like humans, you'd think they'd recognize a human. But apparently they don't. Anyway, right before Turon is about to open her present, a phone call comes in on their telehorn. A telehorn? Really? You couldn't come up with anything better, Mishima? You just decided, I'll just take a horn and then make it into a cell phone, so... genius! No, that's just stupid. Anyway, Turon picks up, it's actually the poachers, and they essentially trick her into leaving the house, and then they knock her on the head with a hammer, and then they tie her up, and then take her away. Meanwhile, her friends are wondering where the hell she is, and then the Joba comes in telling them Turon's been kidnapped. And sure enough, the Vulcan brothers have left a message tacked onto a tree. Anyway, the Vulcan brothers randomly decide to call on the telehorn, and they attempt to tell Mummy the ransom, but since the ransom was already written on the note, they hang up. It's like, how do you forget that you wrote a ransom note and then you bother to leave a horn to tell the heroes the same thing? As far as monster hunters go, these 2 bozos are the worst monster hunters I have ever seen. But then again, considering that our monster heroes are complete idiots, it's no surprise that they would fall for such obvious tricks. Anyway, the 3 members get all upset and they split a tree just to show how awesome they are. Meanwhile, at a cathedral, Turon is lightly tied up, and they're all talking about like how they'll capture all the other monsters and get a whole bunch of money. Then Turon interrupts their celebration, and then they proceed to demonstrate the holy water's effectiveness by burning Turon's arm, which in turn causes the fur on her sleeve thingy to burn off. You know, it seems that girls in manga seem to end up being subjected to water, some kind of liquid that causes not only their skin to burn, but also their clothes. But on Mishima's credit, at least the water doesn't cause all of her clothes to burn off. So unlike my dearest devil princess, so yeah. Anyway, one of the guys randomly decides to throw the rest of the holy water at Turon, but then Aki comes in and manages to catch the holy water before it hits Turon, and then after a random bickering, Turon thanks Aki for saving her. But strangely, the Vulcan brothers aren't all that upset that Aki has somehow managed to get past their plans, and they decide to make more plans to capture the other 2. And then once Aki notices Turon's burnt arm, he asks who did it, and after some hesitation, Turon tells him that it was the Vulcan brothers, and then Aki takes off his hoodie to reveal he has little tiny devil horns. How adorable. But that's not it, as he starts turning into a dire wolf because he is an S-type monster, which means that he has a regular form, which is this ordinary guy with hoodie form, and then a soul form, which in this case is the dire wolf. I mean, obviously this is just a werewolf with horns, but dire wolf refers to a prehistoric wolf. There's a difference between using a fictional name like werewolf and something based on an actual creature called a dire wolf. Anyway, so Aki in his dire wolf form proceeds to beat the crap out of the two Vulcan brothers, and they get blasted into the sky, Team Rocket style, and then immediately after Aki saves the day, he falls asleep, because apparently every time he uses this form, he falls asleep. Okay. So the Vulcan brothers, who are all pissed off, try to call the other hunters in the area, but it turns out that they were beaten the crap out of by Mummy and James. Somehow. This is just stupid.